Okay. Ito na. Kamusta kayo dyan, mga kametan? Dami natin na kailangan na habulin. Dami naman ganap. Within the window of 24 hours, meron na tayong updates on the campaign of former Vice President and Congresswoman Leni Robredo. Leni Robredo will be running for an LGO position as we have been predicting and as we have been discussing for almost a year now. No, na hindi na siya tatakbo for national office and it looks like LGU position. Ito na yung final talaga sa kanya. So yeah, let's go. Ito na talaga. So Leni, LGU, Mayor Leni, official na po yan. Now, obviously, hindi pa official na maging mayor siya, but considering her gravitas, considering her achievements, particularly the Robredo brand, considering she's running in in Bicol region, in Naga, she's running in her own essentially backyard. It's almost almost certain talaga no na she would put up a very good performance in the upcoming election. So Leni is back to politics but not running at the national level. Now, speaking of politika natin, meron din tayong mga updates dito, guys. Meron na officially may bounty na. May bounty na kay Pastor Quiboloy. Kaya yung mga kanina na dami nagme-message sa akin. Ang ang dami nagme-message sa akin na ito sabi nila, ako sir, gusto kong yumaman. Sir, gusto mo yumaman, sir? Mabilisan lang, pero ito yung yumaman dyan, di ba? 10 million, ito ng official bounty. At of course, kung maalala niyo guys, pinag-usapan itong issue ng bounty with Justice Carpio, who also comes from Davao. And of course, on multiple occasions when we had interviews with him, sinabi niya, siguro kailangan lang dyan ng konting incentive, konting bounty. Alam na this, baka may mangyaring positive on that front. So ito na, officially the government has rolled out a bounty for Pastor Quiboloy, 10 million pesos. All right? 10 million pesos. So let's see if that's enough. And then of course, there's also, parang weird naman to. Ano ba talaga? 15 million pesos? Ito, may latest na development. 15 million na po, hindi lang 10 million. All right? Hindi lang 10 million. 15 million for information, 10 million dun sa arrest. So, medyo, nag-level up ng, ang gastos. Diba talagang, malapit ng election, so siguro, kailangan na, di ba? Alam niyo, di ba, sa infrastructure, yung mga ibang projects, nirarush ka agad kasi before elections, di ba? Kailangan mo tapusin kasi bawal gumastos during election period, obviously because that could affect election process, that could create essentially an indirect bribing scenario. So, pansin natin, bago mag-election, biglang tumataas yung gastos ng mga local government units, biglang kung ano-anong mga kalsatang ginagawa. Minsan nga nakakainis, actually more than minsan. Etong nakikita natin pattern, yung sobrang gandang kalsada dito malapit sa amin, mga kalsada dito dati. I mean, in fairness naman, still I love them. Yung asphalt talaga, yung parang Need for Speed, Tokyo Drift kind of asphalt na parang sarap mag-drive ng sports car or something like that. And then boom, sinisira nila pag election period and next thing you know, simento na lang, lower quality pa. So hindi lang sinayang yung pera ng taong bayan, ang ginawa pa dito, ginastos pa para sirain yung magandang aspalte, tapos i-replace pa nila ng pangit, tapos kung ano-anong pang mga disruptions ang nangyayari, lumala lang yung traffic, no access tong areas, minsan delayed, minsan dahil sa mga bagyo and all of that, you have delays in the projects, complete mess, di ba? So yun yung isa sa pinaka nakakainis na practices dito sa Pilipinas. Etong biglang sinasiraan yung mga magagandang kalsada or biglang big time, nag-all in yung mga ibang politicians sa mga infrastructure build up ahead of the elections para hindi sila maabutan nung spending restrictions during the election period. But anyway, analyze natin yan isa-isa. Pag-usapan muna natin si Quiboloy. Pag-usapan muna natin ang itong anunsyo ng DILG. At pag-usapan natin ang mga implication nito. Of course, later this week, we hope to discuss these issues. Although, God willing, from different time zone, I'll be joining you guys. Kasi, of course, this is an important week. Arbitration award natin. It's going to be the 9th anniversary of the Philippine arbitration case against China. So, we're going to have some discussions on that. Hopefully, we'll have Justice Carpio. I'm hoping to reach out also to our ambassador at The Hague. Talk to some of the experts, international law experts throughout the week, God willing. And then obviously, of course, yung RRM and RNR also in the pipelines land. Lahat yan gusto natin pag-usapan. There is a whole series of projects we have in mind. Obviously, guys, we're also looking at doing a number of interviews with various government officials, finance, NEDA, among others, including yung mga ano, yung mga medyo nasa front line ng bardugulan with the DDS side. So I'm trying to mix it up. I'm also looking at, guys, God willing, we'll have visits to fishing communities all across the country, especially yung mga komunidad na naapektuhan ng bullying ng China sa West Philippine Sea. So we're hoping to also address those things. So guys, behind the scenes, quiet lang ako minsan, but I'm trying to get a lot of projects and initiatives going because I think talagang deserve ng ating taong bayan, no, na mapakinggan, no, ano bang ginagawa ng gobyerno, anong mga kailangan, anong mga kulang, anong maayos, anong pwedeng i-sustain, anong pwedeng baguhin. So as any conscientious and I would say dedicated scholar, public intellectual, public scholar, whatever you want to call it, without, I hope it didn't come off as too it didn't come as too the pretentious or whatever. I mean, that's how I'm called around the world: public thinker, public intellectual, whatever. I think part of that is reaching out and having conversation with the government, having conversation with people in positions of power, and then asking them tough questions, asking them good questions, pushing them. No, so yun po yung ginagawa natin. So as you know, I'm already doing that, and I've been doing that dun sa television programs ko, whether ito yung Need for Speed, Stand for Truth doon sa GMA Network back in the day, nung time na kasama ko pa si Atom Aurelio. We were together co-hosts doon sa program na yan. Whether ito yung sa program natin sa One News TV5 right now, which is The View from Manila. As you can see, I'm already interviewing officials among others, but what I'm hoping to do, guys, is dito also sa ating platforms para libre na, para hindi na kailangan na may television pa kayo or something like that. And then obviously, I'll have more quote-unquote editorial control in the sense of production and all of that. I can do it my way. Although, of course, I do it also my way when I'm on television and all. Like I said, it's a much more serious version of me. So more informal, casual version of that. Yun po yung hope natin. That's what we hope to bring to the table dito sa podcast natin. So please continue to support it. Now, balikan natin itong issue na to, guys. Quiboloy, because obviously you cannot discuss Quiboloy if you do not discuss if you're discussing Duterte, right? So as you know, before itong bounty lumabas, the drama was hanash. I think, what is the other term? Ano ba yung isang term? Ekbang, yun. Kaekbangan ng mga Duterte na yan. Naalala niyo, guys, the other month, nagreklamo ito si Duterte. Of all people, si Duterte pang nagreklamo na yung isang effort ng Philippine National Police to arrest Quiboloy ay di umano na overkill daw. Masyadong violent. I mean, and to consider, this is coming from a person who allegedly, or some would say actually, why should even say allegedly, who oversaw extrajudicial killings right and left when he was in power. So for someone like this to complain about due process, to complain about overkill, to compare about making sure that there's a significant degree of consideration and gentleness pagdating sa execution of the law. I mean, this is crazy. So as you remember, the other month, former President Rodrigo Duterte said that he kinondemn niya yung overkill daw na police operation to serve warrants of arrest dun sa accused sex offender and human trafficker Apollo Quiboloy at yung kanyang accomplices dun sa kanyang religious group. Let's just be nice and put it that way. Ito po yung sinabi ni Duterte back in the day: I strongly condemn the use of excessive and unnecessary force in serving the warrant of arrest for Pastor Quiboloy by police officers who are not even from Davao City. Well, pag-usapan natin bakit hindi taga Davao yung ibang police. Dahil precisely because ang concern ng iba dyan is kailangan mo siguro mag-rely dun sa mga police officials na hindi embedded masyado dun sa kultura and the networks of patronage or networks of interrelations. I'm putting it nicely. Of course, you know what we're saying. So kaya nga nagpadala ng special team from Manila, from other places, para ma-serve itong warrant of arrest na yan. But Duterte immediately came to the support of Quiboloy back then at sabi niya absolutely unacceptable daw. itong paraan ng pag-serve ng warrant of arrest. So a heavily armed raiding team of the Special Action Force, guys. Ito yung SAF, no? And Criminal Investigation and Detection Group, CIDG, galing sa Region 10. Sorry, not Manila, Region 10. Nag-raid po sila ng iba't ibang properties owned by Quiboloy, including yung kanilang main compound dyan sa, malapit sa Davao City International Airport, that houses yung kanyang religious groups, Jose Maria College and Worship Building. Nag-storm din sila doon sa Sex Prayer Mountain and Glory Mountain sa Barangay Tamayong, Q-San's Baptismal Resort in the Island Garden City of Samal, and doon sa Kitbog Compound in Malungon, Sarangani. Pero hindi nila nahanap si Quiboloy. Yung raiding team po na yan, who were in full battle gear, nag-scale po sila ng high fence and gates of the KOJC main compound dun sa Diversion Road. Of course, yung mga taga Davao, yung mga familiar dun sa Pulikas Davao, alam niyo yung saan yung Diversion Road, and destroyed the gates at the Glory Mountain to gain access sa property. So, medyo they pushed the envelope. Sabi ni Duterte, will this overkill be the trademark of this administration when dealing with individuals who are merely accused of committing a crime and have not been proven guilty beyond reasonable doubt? Again, I mean, diba, guys, the temerity of this guy who showed zero respect for due process, who showed zero respect for human rights, who endorsed essentially complete violation of the Constitution and due process nung time na presidente siya when it comes to his drug war. I mean, these quotes, guys, this is just incredible for Duterte to say these terms, no? To say these things, no? Na, eto na ba ang maging trademark ng administration ni Bongbong Marcos na kinakawawa ang tao at inaapi yung mga tao na merely accused of committing a crime and have not proven guilty beyond reasonable doubt? Isn't that exactly the case of all of those peoples, right? Whose lives were taken under extremely suspicious circumstances. And ilang beses si Duterte mismo nung presidente siya, ano yung sinasabi niyong time na yan? Sabi niya, di ba? Did he ever talk about guilt beyond reasonable doubt? Meaning complete due process, meaning judicial intervention, meaning yung ating saligang batas for this person to talk about guilt beyond reasonable doubt. For this person to talk about not harassing or not hurting people who are merely accused of committing a crime. I mean, it's pretty rich coming from this person, right? Absolutely zero level of self-awareness, or some would say it's way worse than that. Will they exhibit the same lack of self-restraint they have shown towards critics of this administration when dealing with their supporters? Self-restraint. Self-restraint. This guy is talking about self-restraint, right? So, I mean, this was just so ridiculous, guys. Kaya minsan, you cannot blame me for just laughing it off because it's just so preposterous. How can I take it seriously? Right? It's just so preposterous. Ito pa sinabi ni Duterte, how can the administration guarantee the preservation of the constitutional right of our fellow Filipinos when even the most fundamental of these rights are being trampled upon and blatantly violated? Wait lang, sinabi niya ba ng live ito? Parang statements, parang masyadong coherent yung mga sentences. That's not how I remember him last time when he was like the president. Look at these quotations. I mean, incredible. Incredible, this guy. Guilt beyond reasonable doubt. All right? Guarantee of the preservation of constitutional rights. Right? I mean, look at the things this guy talks about. This is Rodrigo Duterte, guys. World notorious for his violent drug war, which cost the lives of thousands of Filipinos absolutely without any basic consideration for due process, for our constitutional order, for just humanity, basic humanity, guys. So, I'm just saying, guys, hindi nga, parang masyadong maayos yung sentences eh. Sinabi niya ba talaga yan? I didn't see the video or anything Parang kutob ko yan eh. Tapos ito pa. Yung camp ni Quiboloy pa, sabi nila, there is a great probability daw na magsampa sila ng kaso laban sa mga pulis. Ito po yung sinabi nila back in the day, no? It was not only an overkill, I have reasonable grounds to believe that it was even illegal. Ito yung sinabi ng abogado ni Quiboloy, di ba? At least two or even all three of the requisites are not present in this case. These guys are talking about filing cases against police. These guys are talking about due process. These guys are talking about show of self-restraint in usage of force. So, when it comes to other people, lalo yung mahihirap, mga ordinaryong Pilipino, walang pake itong taong ito, itong dati natin presidente, sa taong bayan. So, talagang totally zero respect. I mean, should we go through all the quotes and all the videos of this guy endorsing openly? Tapos sasabihin niya, hindi, it's the context eh. Hindi naiintindihan niya. Like, so what's the point of a speech if the speech doesn't mean anything? Right? Alright? If a president doesn't mean anything he says, then bakit pa siya nagsalita? Bakit pa siya naging presidente? Yung mga palusot nilang ganyan back in the day. Tapos for them now to talk about these things, ibang klase talaga, di ba? Ibang klase talaga. Well, ito naman, sabi naman ni Vice Presidente, ex-Deputy Secretary, sabi niya dapat, orderly and acceptable dapat yung enforcement of law against Quiboloy, di ba? At nag-release din siya ng statements in support, no? Ayan talaga tayo. But anyway, yun yung isang buwan pa, guys. But since then, marami pang development. So, maalala nyo, si Digong, openly sinabi niya na parang alam niya ano ba talagang totoong location ni etong quote-unquote pastor na yan. Okay? So, immediately ang response ng tao, kasi parang he's teasing, di ba? He's parang he's mocking our law enforcement agencies. He's mocking our judicial system. And by the way, hindi lang wanted by Philippine authorities itong taong to, but yung mga dayuhan, mga FBI, ganun, wanted din siya. Hindi dahil ay makabayan siya or patriotic and all, dahil alam nyo na, pwede na i-google yan, di ba? Ano naman talaga nangyari? Okay. Ito guys, obstruction of justice, di ba? Accessory to crime potential, yun yung sinasabi ng ibang tao. Kung talagang may impormasyon itong tao na to, di ba? Let's not forget, officially, hand down si Quiboloy, no? Ng essentially yung administration ng kanyang mga ari-arian to someone you know, right? So, for this person to claim na actually alam niya yung totoong location ni Quiboloy, it doesn't seem totally unrealistic. But more importantly guys, it's not only that it's the fact that he's just saying it openly with zero respect. Walang respetong taong to. Walang respetong taong to. Walang takot sa batas. Walang respeto. Wala. So actually, in response dun sa kanyang essentially boasting na alam niya saan si Quiboloy, sabi ng Philippine National Police na pinag-aaralan nila yung posibilidad na magsampa sila ng kaso for obstruction of justice laban sa dating Presidente Rodrigo Duterte. Kasi sabi niya, alam niya pero ayaw niya i-reveal saan yung whereabouts ng wanted sex trafficker na dating pastor, blah, blah, blah. Alam niyo na. Ayon sa PNP Chief General Francisco Marbil, sabi niya, any statement, quote, that claims to know Quiboloy's location will be reviewed by the PNP to check if it violates Presidential Decree 1829, which penalizes, quote, any person who knowingly or willingly obstructs, impedes, frustrates, or delays the apprehension and prosecution of suspected criminal offenders. Ayon naman sa spokesman ng Chief of the Philippine National Police, we're looking through our legal service to get the witnesses to file cases. You cannot say something that will disrupt police efforts. Remember, we're spending millions of manpower pesos to locate these people. It's the obligation of the citizens to the government. So imagining guys, yung gastos, yung effort, talagang kawawa naman yung taxpayers' money na ginagastos para ating tao to. Tapos itong lalabas itong isa na to. Tapos pagtatawa na lang, ay alam ko sino sila pero pero hindi ko sasabihin saan, di ba? I mean, the complete mockery of our system. Obstruction of justice, di ba? Ito po yung quotation ng Philippine National Police. So, talagang guys, hindi lang binabastos yung sistema natin. Hindi lang minamock yung intelihensya ng taong bayan, hindi lang, I mean, kaya sabi ko, nung sabi na tatakbo silang tatlo sa Senado, although pinagtawanan din hindi kong eventually kasi sobrang ridiculous, it just tells how low the respect of these people is for yung mga institution natin. Ginagawang parang barangay hall lang yung ating Senado, yun yung treatment nila dyan. So now, the police is looking at that, but importantly guys, nag-release din ng statement ang DILG earlier this day na sinabi nila na eto na, may bounty na. Bounty for information leading to his arrest and also bounty for actual arrest, no? So eto na. Ayon sa DILG guys, and of course DILG alam niyo na, It's led by former Mayor Abalos, who is likely running also for the Senate. So medyo malapit ito kay President Duterte. So hindi itong pitsugin na secretary. It's a high-level secretary. So ito na. So ang gobyerno po natin ay dinidouble down yung kanilang operations at yung efforts na arrestuin na talaga ito si Quiboloy and his co-accused dyan sa several criminal cases that I really suggest you guys to look into. So the Department of Interior Local Government, guys, announced that a 10 million reward will be given to anyone who can provide key information that will lead to Quiboloy. Ayan, gusto mong yumaman, guys. Ayan na, ito na. Ito na ang pagkakataon nyo, guys. 10 million pesos ang malaking pera yan. Makakabili ka ng ano dyan. Hindi naman McLaren. Makakabili ka ng magandang ano kayong pwede sa 10 million? Yung simpleng apartment siguro. Pwede rin 10 million. Pwede million. Yung magandang BMW na or Benz na na SUV. Oh, 'di ba? Hindi naman McLaren pero pwede na rin, 'di ba? Pwede na rin. So, eto guys, 15 million reward for info leading... Ano ba talaga? 10 million or 15 million? Nahilo ako. Bakit iba-iba yung lumalabas dito? Anyways, kung 15 million, di mas maganda. Makakabili pa kayo ng disenteng apartment niyan, di ba? O, di ba? Kagandang buhay niyo, di ba? So sabi ng Secretary Benhur Abalos na gusto ko pong i-anunsyo na meron tayong mga kaibigan na gustong tumulong sa paghahanap sa kanila na nag-offer ng reward na 10 million pesos for any information leading to the arrest of Quiboloy. Meanwhile, reward for credible information in 5 co-accused. Oh, ito guys kung ayaw naman dun sa Quiboloy mismo, pwede din dun sa mga sidekicks niya, di ba? Pwede rin daw kumuha ng 1 million pesos each kung meron kang credible information dun sa mga 5 co-accused ni itong quote-unquote pastor na yan. Si Jacqueline. So if meron kayong information ukol kay Jacqueline Roy, Crescente Canada, Pauline Canada, ang ganda na pangalan, Ingrid Canada, and Sylvia Semanes. Canada, bakit Canada? Tatlong Canada, ang taray meron kayong 1 million. Bawat isa So kung yung tatlong Canada, for instance, meron kayong information, 3 million na yan. O, pwede na rin yan. Maganda yan, 10 million, 3 million. O, makakabili kayo ng BYD na magandang kotse. O, may electric car na kayo. Pwede na. Pwede rin kayo magbakasyon sa Japan ng mga 6 months siguro. Pwede. Abutan yan, okay. Sarap buhay kayo, di ba? Parang yung mga ibang natin, sarap buhay, di ba? So, ito talaga, So nagalit na naman yung isa pang very very magaling na very very magaling na abogado ni Gong. Alam na sino yan. Sabi niya, ito po ang hindi ito si Harry Roque pero medyo Anyway, ito po ang nakakataka sa pabuya na ito. Inamin naman na hindi galing sa gobyerno ng pabuya. Kung mayroon pong nag-i-interest na arestuin si Pastor Quiboloy at nagbibigay ng pabuya, bakit? Tignan po nila kung anong interest ng mga taong ito. At sila pang biktima ngayon. Ang masama pa yung gobyerno ngayon. I'm just saying, guys. Gusto nyo kumita, gusto nyo tumulong sa bayan, gusto nyo tumulong sa, para sa bayan, gusto nyo tumulong sa hostisya, gusto nyo tumulong dun sa mga legit na biktima. Ayan, guys. Marami kayong options. Minimum 1 million each of these persons. Kung 5 sila, 5 million. Kung 3 yung magkapamilya, 3 million. Yung kay Quiboloy naman, 10 million. Okay, daming options. Pwedeng yumaman, di ba? Hindi naman yaman-yaman na, pero medyo komportable ng buhay na siguro after that, di ba, guys? So, yun ang isipin nyo na lang. So, ayun na. Yung mga natin dyan, kaibigan natin siya sa Davao. Baka naman gusto nyo pwede natin i-anunsyo, di ba? Baka may cut pa tayo dyan. Sige, 10 tayo, i-share natin isa-isa. No, but guys, I'm serious, okay? What I'm saying is that mukhang seryoso ng gobyerno. At they're looking at all sorts of incentive systems among others. Nasisigurado, namhuli talaga itong tao. At mukhang based dito sa ginagawa ng gobyerno, mukhang alam naman nila more or less saan tong taong to eh. Siguro it's just about zeroing in on the exact location. And then doing it in a way na hindi magkaroon ng resistance or doing it in a way na essentially smooth and successful, diba? So, yung yung reward na ito, potentially this could create some divisions, no? And some of the people siguro na medyo supportive dati, biglang mga paisip, oh, para sa bayan, tumulong pa ako sa mga biktima, kumita pa ako, di ba? Tick all the boxes, di ba? Pwedeng ganyan yung interpretation niya sa situation na yan. So, again, this is important because naalala niyo guys, nung interview natin with Justice Corpus, sabi na madali lang naman yan. Bigyan mo lang ng bounty reward yan. Huli na kaagad yan, di ba? In fact, yun din yung suggestion niya kay Bantag. Si Teves naman, di ba, ano na, di ba? I-expedite na si Teves. Mukhang natalo na siya dun sa kaso niya. I think he was trying to resist being expedited back to the Philippines para mga Portuguese pa yung mga lawyers niya, no? Mga AFAM na Europeo, yung mga lawyers niya na Latino. Mukhang natalo siya sa kaso niyan. So, you know, the walls are closing in on these people. But, before I transition to Leni, because I think that's also a very important topic to discuss, guys, I think ang kahalagaan ng issue na ito ay seryoso ng gobyerno. At alam din ng gobyerno na imposible na may gagawin silang malaki kay Quiboloy na hindi inevitably ma-impact ito sa mga Dutertes. At now with Sara Duterte essentially out of the cabinet, no? And potentially an ICC, International Criminal Court case coming in, connect the dots. So essentially, you can say yung Quiboloy arrest would be test case, would be a demonstration point, no? It would be essentially dress rehearsal, if I can put it that way, for potential arrest of the other guy. Na alam naman natin sino yan. So kaya siguro yung gobyerno medyo calibrated sila dito, unti-unti nilang ginagawa, parang thirst trap style. Unti-unti nila ginagawa yung step-by-step sequencing ganon. Minamasahe nila yung ground, sisigurado nila na because they're testing the waters And essentially, pwede ito yung maging dress rehearsal if they go for G. I don't think the go for G will happen this year kasi parang election na rin kasi. Imagine may arrestuin nila si Digong before elections. Baka nga manalo pa yan, mag number 1 pa yan, magpaawa effect. But it's possible na after elections, there could be things done, diba? Or ma-implement na itong ICC warrant of arrest if it comes later this year, diba? So nakita naman natin yung ICC na yan nag-release na sila ng warrant arrest kay Netanyahu, kay Putin, itong mga malalaking leaders, global leaders na yan. Malabo na ma-arrest nila yung mga taong yan kasi in power pa sila at in powerful country. But etong isa, pretty doable sa kanila yan. So ironically, baka yung kung saan medyo delayed talaga, super delayed naman talaga ng ICC yan, tagal na tong kaso na to, baka doon pa sila magkakaroon ng more operational success. 'Di ba? Especially if yung kasalukuyan ng gobyerno ay lalong-lalo na nagiging or unti-unti nagiging komportable dito sa pwede mga scenarios na mangyari sa Davao. So pwedeng dress rehearsal talaga ito. Pwedeng dress rehearsal ito kasi unti-unti pinapalitan yung mga ibang pulis sa Davao, unti-unti nagpapadala sila ng mga pulis galing sa mga ibang areas, unti-unti tinitignan ng SAF at saka yung mga special forces natin, anong mga pwede nilang gawin, unti-unti nila tinitimpla yung political situation on the ground, unti-unti nilang tinitignan ano yung mga reaction ng mga iba't ibang grupo. Hindi ito maliit na tao ang pinag-usapan dito, guys. Malaking tao ito, especially sa Davao. So, kaya nga, potentially ito yung dress rehearsal for the arrest, for the big one, right? So, this is big, obviously, but there could be a bigger one later on, right? So, tignan natin, guys, anong mga direction ng mga bagay as we follow this. So again, just to be clear, hindi lang ito ukol kay Quiboloy. This is fundamentally about what will Marcos do if ever mag-issue talaga ng warrant of arrest ang ICC. Or, interestingly, in parallel, I mean, this is not mutually exclusive, yung mga komite sa Kongreso or Senado, or particularly in the Congress, no, ay meron silang sigurong findings na yung gentleman's agreement sa West Philippine Sea, or baka mamaya sa Supreme Court pa, may issue pa doon sa confidential fund ng anak niya, ganun. So, again, this is a dress rehearsal issue. So, let's watch for the developments here. At dito medyo nabasa mo talagang diskarte talaga ng Marcos administration Slow burn talaga sila. Boiling frog yung strategy nila. They never go right away, di ba? Unti-unti lang nila binibuild up But then again, as Hemingway said, you know, things collapse slowly and then suddenly, right? So let's look at how things move on this front. In the meantime, guys, pag-usapan naman natin yung kabila. Oh, yung mga na-excite masyado yung mga ano, ha? Na-excite masyado yung mga tao. Talagang pag-usapan pera talaga. Bigyan ng jacket! Nagbigyan ng information, bigyan ng jacket! Si Ato, bigyan ng jacket! Yung mga ganun, di ba? Maganda yan, maganda yan. Okay. Ito. Mag-transition na tayo. Transition na tayo. Namin pwedeng pag-usapan dito eh. Masyado naman yata kayo na-excite guys eh. Sa 15 million ha. Okay, laking pera. So 15 million kasi 10 million sa kanya tapos 5 million dun sa kanya mga mga accessory to crimes or alleged co-accused, no? So yung pala kaya sabi ko bakit parang nangyari diyan clickbait. Ano ba talaga? 15 or 10? Kasi 15 medyo pwede pa eh. Pwede ka kumaganap ng magandang apartments sa medyo magandang lugar sa Pilipinas, di ba? Pero okay na kahit mga 3 million, di ba? Or mga 1 million lang, pwede na rin. Pwede na magbakasyon. Ay. Ito na naman si Juanito, troll boy. Yan. Ganun lang, madali lang may block yung mga trolls ngayon. Umayos kayo ha, mag-block kayo dyan. Umayos kayo. Dami nagalit sa akin dun sa video ko, bakit nagsishare naman ako ng saan na ba yan? Yung mga nagsasayaw-sayaw, yung mga di ba? Syempre, naman, satire naman yun, humor naman yun. Ito talagang mga tao talaga, walang sense of humor. Nung panahon na silang nasa power, kung ano ng mga kaewanan, ng mga kaekbangan ng pinagagawa nila, sila pa yung sila pang nag-accusa na, nag-spread kayo ng fake news, ganun. Wala, pikon lang kayo eh. Wala, tapos na, laos na kayo. Anyway, pero feeling ko, may nag-comment ba na, secret fan kaya ata ni ganito. Sabi ko, hindi, baka ikaw secret fan sa akin. Di wala na. Dapat ganun na sagutin mo sa mga troll na yun. Okay? So, okay, anyways guys, let's get serious. Eto na. So, what we have been discussing for a very, very long time, eto na talaga. It's official right now. Ayon kay former Vice President Leonor Leni Robredo, I have decided to run for the mayorship of Naga. Mahirap na ipilit to run for something na parang hindi align sa capacities ko just to hold a national position. That's interesting. So, is she saying that hindi tugma sa kanyang Senado? That's an interesting. Well, sa bagay, I mean, lahat naman ng position ni Ma'am Leni throughout the years were executive, di ba? Vice Presidente. Hindi eh. Nag-congresswoman siya, di ba? Well, baka siguro ang pag-intindi niya sa congresswoman position is still an LG work. Kasi naka-nest ka pa rin dun sa base mo. Kasi obviously she's referring here to the Senate, 'di ba? Yung fiscalizing job, yung ganun. Pero actually, in fairness, credit to Ma'am Leni, siguro tanggap niya talaga na hindi siya yung tipo na mag-fiscalize, na mag-a-attack, mag-criticize type. I mean, we already saw that in her 6 years in office. Actually, interestingly, in retrospect, Leni saying na hindi align yung kanyang capacities to, of course, we all know, Senate ang pinag-usapan dito. Probably is also why she did not take the fight to Duterte in a way that many people expected. Diba? Yung essentially do the Leila de Lima / Riza Ontiveros style na go and attack and criticize Duterte right and left. Hindi ginawa ni Leni yan. So siguro sinasabi niya, it's just not her style. She's just not, she's just built differently. Right? Iba yung core expertise na. She's really an executive type. She's a quiet worker. She wants to get things done from, essentially in quiet. Ayun niya yung all out and, with guns blazing and attacking and criticizing. Essentially the fiscalizer job, no? Na very ably being executed by Riza Hontiveros. And back in the day also by Senator Leila de Lima. So at least interestingly, And there are also some people who say, yeah, I mean, senator is a different job. Being a senator is different from having an executive position. And in fact, what's interesting is usual ang sinasabi natin is or at least the conventional wisdom is pag naging senador ka dahil na-prove mo na meron kang national profile, pwede yan ang maging stepping stone mo for becoming the president. But from what we have seen in recent years, serving in an LGU position is a good training ground for being the next president. Although, of course, interestingly, in the case of Bongbong Marcos, he was also a former senator. In the case of President Aquino, he was also a former senator, right? In the case of Arroyo, she was also a former senator, right? In the case of Erap Estrada, she was also a former senator. So the only two presidents that I can think in contemporary times na hindi naging ex-senator, well, Marcos Sr. was also an ex-senator. Let's not forget that. So actually, if you look at it statistically, numerically, historically, Senate was always the stepping stone for the presidency. But you have the phenomenon of Duterte, who never served in the Senate or any national position of importance before running for the president. But because he supposedly, or at least he projected some level of competence in handling one of the biggest and most prosperous cities in the country, which is Davao City, yun yung naging basis niya. That's exactly what also Binay, Jejomar Binay wanted to do. That's exactly also what Isko Moreno wanted to do, right? And in the case of Ramos naman, he was an ex-defense secretary, ex-general, so iba naman yung trajectory niya. So statistically, the best way, I mean, to see if someone has ambition for the highest office is whether this person is really interested in running for Senate, right? Or for a very senior cabinet position. But usually yung mga cabinet position tas tumakbo for elected office, not necessarily all did well, right? I mean, let's say with Quiboloy, if he can finally win a national position this coming elections, all the Senate elections next year will be the most competitive one. But going back to this, it's quite interesting for Leni to say that na hindi tugma yung mga kanyang strengths, rather. I mean, she's very humble, so she doesn't say yung galing ko or yung specialization ko or yung mga skills ko. She just used the word very generically, very, very neutral. Ang term na ginamit niya is capacities. So yung capacities niya daw is hindi necessarily tugma sa Senate. So obviously she ran for the president and she was the vice president. So talagang ang in-imply na dito is executive talagang gusto niya. At sa tingin niya, yun yung tugma talaga sa kanyang kapasidad, sa kanyang skill set, no? Tingin ko mas align yung skill set ko. Ginamit na talaga yung word ng skill set pala, no? Skill set ko doon. If I become mayor of Naga, marami akong pwedeng i-showcase na, 'di ba, parang ipakita sa mga tao na this can be done, that it's possible to start programs that are replicable in other areas. Ooh, that's very interesting. That's very, very interesting. For Leni to say, first of all, na mas tugma sa kanyang executive position, whether it's a highest level running for the president or it's as the mayor of Naga. But this is where, guys, it's really, really interesting. Ang sinasabi na dito is that gusto niya ipakita na good governance is possible. Gusto niya ipakita na pwede yung mga initiatives and projects that she has in mind. And obviously, as someone who is active in civil society, who has been active in grassroots initiatives, helping farmers, helping ordinary people throughout the decades, well before she became the national figure that she became. When she ran against BBM successfully in 2016, and then, in fairness, it was a decent performance for her considering everything and how late she came in the race in 2022. Ang sinasabi niya dito is, I want to show that essentially we can create best practices here, because what she's saying is that posible na magsimula ka ng mga programa na replicable, na pwedeng gayahin or pwedeng maging inspirasyon sa ibang lugar. So essentially, she's looking at running for the mayor of Naga, not only to make Naga great again, although Naga has been a great, great place for a very long time, thanks again to the legacy of Leni Robredo, among others. But what she's looking at is also making Naga a kind of a showcase city for the rest of the country. Again, Leni being humble, Leni, not being a boastful type of person. Again, she couched it in a very humble, non-presumptuous language. But at least she's honest enough to say that Ang gusto natin ipakita dito is that kaya yan sa iba't ibang lugar. So yung term na replicable ito in other areas, yung replicable and yung part na sinasabi ng replicable, that's extremely important. Now obviously, again, trabaho ko lang yan. I'm not imputing or I'm not trying to impose anything. But I won't be surprised. The reading of other people would be, so you're saying that you can do some successful things in Naga that can be done nationally. Therefore, you're not necessarily ruling out the possibility of running again for the presidency, and perhaps this time with greater preparation, with greater momentum, and really an exhibit A. Diba? Kasi nahirapan siya nung from vice-presidente to presidente. Because there, as a vice president, her greatest achievement was how she had a clean administration. No corruption, transparency, among others. But because she was completely sidelined and pinalis sa kabinete, she couldn't really show many projects, right? Kasi limitado lang yung resources niya. So she proved that with limited resources, you can achieve a lot. But still, with the resources of a mayor, of a major city, a beautiful city, a successful city, an LGU star city like Naga, she could do things that she was not able to do as a vice president. And for other people, they would say, so maybe this could be the stepping stone for the presidency or another run at the presidency in 2028. In fact, if there's anything we learned in 2022 is that you can run for a high office, lose, just like BBM, and then run again, in his case, even for a higher office, and then he ended up successful if you play your cards well. My problem, though, with that speculation, because it is really a speculation, is that parang masyadong mabilis for her to just run as a mayor for one term lang and then run immediately for presidency. So it is also possible that she wants to do 3 terms and then maybe look at beyond 2028 and let's see where it goes from there, right? It is possible if a progressive government takes over, someone like Risa, or someone more centrist na hindi mala Digong or mala BBM, maybe she would be open to coming back to serve in a cabinet position later on. But as I said, yun nga clearly Leni is looking at creating a showcase governance. And I mean showcase in a positive sense, right? Inspiration for others. But I won't be surprised others will also speculate what will be the plan for 2028. But as I said again, parang very short if she runs right away. It will come off wrong. And I think that was the problem with Isko, di ba? Now, 1 term pa lang siya sa pagka-mayor ng Manila, tumakbo ka agad. So, naging mukhang stepping stone lang siya. So, in retrospect, some people would question whether he was really committed to Manila or he just used Manila as a stepping stone. I don't know. But one thing is very clear here, that in fairness to Leni Robredo, and this is of course a sensitive issue, and I raised this for quite some time. Obviously, alam niyo naman, I've openly called for, I've openly said na Riza should run for a higher office. At the very least, vice president. But the presidency should be a consideration for her. Riza herself said that while she's not going to talk about her own personal plans, she is definitely going to push for progressives, liberals, and genuine opposition to have a ticket for 2028. Now, ito yung mahalaga. Sabi ni Leni, kasi I remember there was a small event dun sa office of the vice president just before I stepped down. Nag-take ng oath na si Senator Riza Hontiveros sa akin for the fresh term. During that event, sinabi ko na I'm already passing on the baton to Senator Riza. I became, quote-unquote, the leader of the opposition only because I was the highest-ranking member of the government. So parang ganun naman yun eh. So essentially, she was saying she was a leader of opposition back in the days because she was the highest-ranking as the vice president. And then because Riza Hontiveros later on was the only one from the opposition when national position, then automatically she should take up the cudgels. Wala na ako sa position si Senator Riza na yung highest ranking member of the government from the opposition, so rightful lang na siya na. Meaning siya na maging leader of the opposition. So I think it's very important. And kudos for Leni Robredo to make the clarification. And then again, reminders, si Riza Hontiveros ang leader ng opposition. And therefore, we have to respect and support her in 2025, as she leads the opposition in a very, very tough race, sobrang mahirap yung 2025 Senate race. Arguably, I would say easily the most competitive Senate race out there. Two other Tulfos, who knows, three Dutertes, another Villar is running. My goodness, I mean, it's going to be crazy. Six re-election is... so it's good for Leni to do that. But then again, I think none of this will take away the speculation that in 2028, it's still not clear who between the two will run, if ever any of them will continue to run in 2028. But then again, I think just one term would be too short for Leni to run again. But this is politics. If she does very, very well as the mayor of Naga, which is not impossible, if it creates and generates the kind of excitement that it could really generate, and if surveys show in 2027 that Leni is still seen as the most viable candidate for the presidency of the opposition, I wouldn't be surprised Riza will run as a vice president to Leni Robredo. But again, this is very speculative, but we have to do these kinds of analysis. Precisely because parati ko sinasabi, hindi pwede na gagawin mo lang yung analysis or gagawin mo yung plano pag nandyan na yung elections. This is done over the years. This is done over the decade. And that's what I appreciate with Riza Ontiveros. Ang sinabi niya, ngayon pa lang, tinatrabaho niya yung grounds, yung fondasyon ng genuine opposition for 2028. Because ayaw natin na maging purong Duterte versus Marcos lang yon. My goodness, this country is more than just dynasties, or those two dynasties definitely. And the drama of Duterte, enough of that. We have to move on. We have to move forward, and it's time for the genuine opposition to get its act together and be competitive, or at least make sure mayroon siyang say sa 2028 race. So, interesting times, guys. Interesting times. And I'm glad that both Leni and Riza are going to keep active in the 2025 elections, and I'm glad na ang maging opposition sa 2025 ay hindi lang yung mga naging opposition dahil hindi binigay ng position. Na meron tayong genuine opposition, and Leni Robredo absolutely will be one of the key figures in the genuine opposition run for elected offices for a better future and governance in the Philippines in 2025 as essentially something that will set the tone for 2028, kasi yun naman talagang labanan dito because I think many people are sick and tired of just being stuck between Marcos Duterte, dynasty versus dynasty, all of those things. Maraming salamat mga kameta. Thank you very much again for your constant support. Thank you again sa lahat ng sumusuporta sa atin. Pataas na pataas yung ratings natin on Spotify and podcast. Please continue to rate us. Deep Dive with Richard Hidarin. Libre lang po yan. Libre lang magbigay ng stars. Well, nagbigay ng stars na support. I also appreciate it, tremendously appreciate it. Thank you very much for that. But I'm talking about rating, 5-star rating. If you think we deserve it, please give that, because we need to get as many ratings as possible to do well. More or less regular naman ng mga top 100 tayo sa Spotify. But I'm really hoping we go for top 10. Nakita ko kanina, ang Cool Pals ay top 20 na sila. I think nagta-top 10 din sila, number 9 or something like that. We want to be in top 10 eventually sa Spotify. And we want to maintain there in Spotify top 10 so that eventually, hopefully, we can have a Spotify event or something like that. Yun ang gusto natin. And all of that is, of course, part of a bigger effort we have, although at a very, humble level in my case, to create a discourse, a positive discourse. So kung sa Amerika meron silang Pod Save America or whatever, to make sure na medyo may kwenta, medyo maayos-ayos na hindi sabog yung Democrats and the fight for democracy. This is our own also kind of a Pod Save Philippines. Our little effort at making sure we have intelligent, critical thinking discourse pagdating sa ating politika. And in the process also of, I'm learning, guys. I'm also learning from you guys. I'm learning also from these conversations because, yes, it is a conversation because I'm seeing your comments as it comes in. It's just a different kind of interaction. And of course, kudos, and by the way, shout out also dun sa mga ibang kameta natin na-meet natin over the weekend. Mukhang ibang tao na-recognize tayo from bosses natin. Wait, ikaw si Darian, medyo ganun. So, thank you sa lahat ba nakikinig sa atin. Thank you sa lahat ng mga ginawa tayong background noise. Habang nag-grocery, habang nag-shopping, habang naglinis ng bahay, habang nagluluto, habang wag naman naligo, medyo iba na yun. Or nag-gym rather, or something like that. Alright? Thank you very much, guys, for your constant support, for your generous support. I really appreciate it. And please also don't forget to subscribe to us on our different platforms and channels. Vita sa Facebook, Richard Ferran the Haydarian, and also, of course, YouTube. Very, very important on YouTube. Richard Haydarian Vlogs. Please, libre lang mag-subscribe. Your support counts. Your support matters. It's what gives us strength. It's what gives us inspiration. And I'm telling you guys, the more you support us, the more we are in the conversation, the more we can get the algorithm to work in favor of us spreading the good message, the more na makinig sa atin yung mga officials and people in power. Because the more power we have, good power, moral power, satyagraha, Gandhi kind of truth force we have, the more we can push our politicians, our leaders, our future leaders to do better for the country. All right? Yun pong kailangan natin. This is our little way of creating pressure, creating inspiration, and creating the right discourse and blueprint for nation building and success of the Philippines. Maraming salamat. God bless and talk to you soon. God bless po. Thank you very much for all of your support. Salamat.